Hey, welcome back to the Retire While You Work podcast. I'm Myles Zuger, a wealth advisor here on the team, joined by Carson, another wealth advisor here on the team, and Jeri Anne, our director of operations. First episode of the new year here. I hope everybody had a great holiday. Anybody do anything notable over the last 2-3 weeks here since we've last been together to record?
Well, I stayed in my pajamas for like a week straight and did nothing but watch movies and eat.
Sometimes that's the best.
Yeah.
That's what the holiday should be. I went to Gatlinburg with my family before Christmas. That was chaos. And then had Christmas and spent the new year down in Georgia. Their best friends that live down there for a few days. Didn't do anything eventful. And now we're just coming off of the first snow of 2025.
Yeah. And I went to Illinois to see my family for Christmas with my wife, and then was back here for New Year's to have a relaxing New Year's. And yeah, we had some snow the other day. So
pretty
local,
boring. We're not very exciting people around the holidays.
Sometimes it's nice just to not have a whole lot to do though.
Yeah, for sure.
But today, kicking off the new year, we wanted to talk about the importance of retirement plans and the contributions into them. And then, as usual, with the start of a new year, the IRS has changed the limits for some plans on how much you can put into them. And so we wanted to cover that just so everybody's up to speed, especially with it being the first part of the year, a couple weeks into the year. If you're somebody who maybe was not aware or was aware and maybe just forgot, now is the time to go ahead and update those contributions so that payroll, if you're having deductions from payroll added into 401ks or other sorts of retirement plans, that you're putting in the right amount to get that max by year end. So just kind of kicking things off here, Carson, when it comes to retirement plans and making contributions, what's the importance of them? What are maybe a couple things people should consider or do if they're not? And anything else you have to add to that?
Sure. I think, if you're not maxing out your employer retirement plan and you're just doing a percentage of your income, I always recommend at the start of every year, bump it up 1%, and that is a very easy way to slowly and incrementally increase the amount you save into your company sponsored retirement plan, your 401k. And it's not going to take a dramatic impact on your take home pay on a bi-monthly basis, however you're paid. It's
maybe every year and you won't even notice that.
That's right. I say at least bump up your percentage at the start of a year. It's likely, with a lot of employers that you raises on 1/1, and couple it with anytime you do get a raise at work, also take advantage and go ahead and, bump it up 1%. So there could be a time when January 1st, you bump up 1%, you get a raise July 1st, bump it up 1%. Then that is a way to very, very slowly build up to a point where you're going to end up maxing out your employer retirement plan before you know it in a few short years. And then that's going to give you a lot of momentum and you'll really thank yourself later on down the road. And it's just a great habit to prioritize saving for the year and always make sure that you're ahead of the game for yourself before you find out, what you're spending, or if you have any big expenses, you're going to, contribute to your retirement plan. You're going to bump it up a little bit. On top of that, go ahead. On top of that, I would say if you are maxing out your 401k or employer-sponsored plan, the limits change just about every year. They're indexed with inflation. So that's a big reason to be aware at the start of a year what the maximum contribution limits are for. There's so many different things that the IRS changes every single year, but a lot of those are 401ks, IRAs, catch-up contributions, you name it, which we'll go into that and show that here in a minute. But it's just to make sure that you're not going to contribute above it, or if you already max out your 401k in 2024, the maximum limit was $23,000. Maybe you were someone who just spread that out throughout the whole year. Well, going into 2025, if now you have a raise, now the limit's more, you might need to look and adjust your contribution percentage to make sure that you spread that out as evenly as possible.
If you do forget that most payrolls are going to cut you off, so you don't need to be at risk of over contributing. So you're fine to leave it as you are, but I think it's always best to Carson's point, just to adjust to make sure.
And all I was going to add to that is The other side, if you're not maxing out, if you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you don't feel like you can afford to max that out because you need that monthly income, at the very least, get up to what your employer is willing to max, which is usually 3 or 4%. A lot of young people, when they first start out, they don't even understand totally what an employer retirement plan is, 401k or whatever. And so they really don't understand the whole match piece. So if your employer's putting in 4%, you need to make sure you're at least putting in 4%.
And I would say too, if you're starting a new job and maybe for whatever reason your employer doesn't match for the first year or two, I still think it's important just to get the discipline of savings down. And maybe you have a plan where your employer doesn't match at all, but they provide a 401k. I still think that it's important, if you're not disciplined enough to be saving on your own, just to go ahead and do that and have those amounts deducted direct from your paycheck, because then you're never seeing that money. You don't even have a chance to spend it. It's just being tucked away in an account and invested for you for your future.
It can sometimes be difficult to know that, money you're putting into a 401k, especially if you're young, you're not going to touch this until you're 59 and a half, probably later, 60 plus. We could be talking decades down the road when you're going to touch this money. But I don't think we can underestimate how powerful an employer match is. You putting in 3%, employer matches 3%. That is literally doubling your money as long as you let it sit there and grow. Not to mention the additional potential market appreciation that comes from that for many, many years invested in the stock market. So,
it's literally free money. If you're not, you are not getting the match, you're missing out on free money.
Your employer is giving you money if you just take advantage and contribute to your employer plan. So at a minimum, we beg, if you can shave off 2 or 3% of your income, please do, just to take advantage of that employer match. It's free money.
Do either of you have any thoughts on the traditional 401k option where you get a tax deduction for putting that money in versus the Roth option where you obviously don't get that deduction, but it still grows tax deferred? Any thoughts from either of you on that?
You go first, Jeri
Anne. Honestly, it all, there's stipulations around it, your income levels and whatever. But if you can do the Roth money, which is, the after-tax money, I think it's wise. It's going to be your most aggressive amount of money, and it's going to grow for the longest. And if you're able to contribute to a Roth, I would take advantage of it.
I agree. I think, you can get into the weeds of marginal tax rates and that sort of thing. My general rule is that, now this doesn't apply. This is a very broad brushstroke here, and it's different for everybody. But if you are young, I'll let you decide what that means. If you're young, absolutely prioritize Roth contributions into a 401k. What's different than a Roth IRA is there is no income limit on your ability to contribute to a Roth 401k if your 401k plan offers Roth contributions. So even if you make $10 million, you can still make Roth contributions into your 401k. If you try to contribute to a Roth IRA, you're capped out. There's an income limit. You can't make over like 230 grand or so. So that's a benefit. You can make a lot of money and still make Roth contributions that'll grow tax-free forever. And it's really a balance. We can get into the weeds and say, well, at a certain tax rate, the pre-tax benefit is better to get the tax deduction now. It's rough, but I still think, in my opinion, my personal opinion, that Roth contributions for anyone that's young are going to have a pretty huge impact, not just on the quantitative side, but also on the emotional side. When you're in your 70s, what an amazing thing to have this massive Roth IRA that you can pull from that's tax-free. You don't have to worry about taxes. That's not going to be a big number in your retirement plan. So I at least want to make sure some people have a balance of both Roth and pre-tax assets. If you're young, absolutely prioritize Roth. If you make a lot of money and you're young, then at least, maybe we do a balance. Maybe there's 50-50. You get some pre-tax, you get some in Roth. What about you?
And not every company that offers a 401k offers Roth, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, the plan that you're in your company plan does have to have that feature on
That's
it.
right. What do you think, Myles?
I always kind of bring it back to the tax picture, and just somebody, if you're a high income earner you probably do favor, even if you're young, you probably do favor the tax deduction,
Right.
the 23,500 that you can get now versus paying tax on that money. And because if you're in the highest income bracket, that's saving you $4,000 or $5,000 in taxes, which can be pretty valuable and you're not really going to get elsewhere. And so, the thought process is you're probably making more now than maybe you will in retirement when you're pulling money out. And so you just value the tax deduction more now. I always kind of bring it back to that conversation. If that's what's important to you, then I think do the traditional option and forego the Roth.
Yep. The married filing joint tax bracket goes up to, for 2025, almost 400 grand of income. If you're single, 24% tax bracket goes up to 200 grand of income. If you're in that arena, I think Roth, you should heavily consider Roth, just because you're still in the 24% tax bracket or below, marginal tax bracket. I think in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty relatively low, considering where I think we're probably going to be seeing higher taxes down the road. Above that, the next step, you bump from 24 all the way up to 32. You find yourself in that 32% tax bracket. Yes, just like Myles said, I think then we start to have a conversation of, do we pair pre-tax versus Roth contributions, or do we just go all in on pre-tax?
That's good. I think anything else on qualified plans through an employer before we hop into some of just the changes around 401ks and other types of IRAs?
No, I think just I'll quickly go over kind of some contribution limits on the 401k side. So in 2024, it was 23 grand that you could contribute on an annual basis to a employer 401k. That bumped up to 23,500 for 2025. The catch-up contribution, so if you're age 50 or over, the catch-up contribution is still at 7,500. That brings a total for 2025, if you're over 50 or older, 31 grand that you can contribute to a 401k. Now, what's new is there is also an enhanced catch-up contribution for those who are working, can contribute in our ages 60 to 63. You can contribute not just an extra 7,500, but an extra 11,250. That makes your total that you can put into your company 401k 34,750. This was something new with the Secure Act 2.0 from a year or two ago. And so if you're in that 60 to 63 age band, you actually have an enhanced catch-up contribution. So
that's the greater of 11,250, not 11,250 plus the 7,500 catch-up. So it's really, if you're in that 60 to 63 bracket, it's like an extra, call it just shy of $4,000.
That's right.
$3,750 that you can put.
Right.
For IRAs, no changes this year. Just to kind of recap that, still at $7,000 if you're for both the Roth and the traditional, if you're eligible for them. If you are under age 50, if you're over age 50, you still get that extra $1,000 you can put into there. So under age 50, $7,000. Over age 50 for IRAs, $8,000 for those contributions.
And then what about for SEP IRAs for people that are 1099 employees? Did that change this year or anything?
It did, Carson. I think it's going up to, I want to say 72,000
from like 66 or something.
70, going up to 70. It was 69,000 for 2024, and now it's gone up to 70,000 for 2025.
Perfect. And I think one of the bigger changes as it relates to qualified plans and 401ks specifically is that previously through your employer, 401ks were what's considered opt-in plans, meaning you had to sign up for it to start contributing. They're now being changed to opt-out plans, meaning when you start a new job, if they have a 401k that you're eligible for, you're automatically going to be started in that plan. It's up to you to say you don't want to participate in it, which I think is good. So it's going to have people contributing. I think it starts at like 3% of income. And it's on you to kind of say that you would rather prefer not to do that. You still have the option, just makes it a little bit tough. You have to actually do something now to not participate.
It's great because just knowing, I mean, I've got, 3 children, adult children, knowing how they think and they want to figure out, okay, how much money am I going to take home? So, I'm not going to do this 401k this year. Maybe I'll start it next year
And then you say the same thing next year.
Yes. But if they're forced to start it, I mean, because they don't understand, they're thinking I'm 23 now. I don't touch this till I'm 60 basically. So it's not like in forefront of their mind is to retire, to put money there for retirement,
Sure. And people realize the money that goes into a 401k that you contribute, it is your money. It will always be your money. It's still yours. It doesn't go away. Even if you leave that job, it's still your money. At that point, you could keep it in the 401k, move it into your new 401k, or move it into an IRA in your name. It is still your money. So don't think that, you're giving away money or your employer has it or whatever. You will always have access to it.
You'll always have access to it. But if you take it before 59.5, you will pay a penalty.
That's exactly
plus taxes. So.
With some very rare or minor exceptions. But yes, that's right. So yeah, I think it's great that they auto enroll people. That's a great habit to get into.
Any other, before we kind of wrap up here, any other big changes that you see on the horizon for retirement plans, 401ks, IRAs that people need to be aware of?
No, off the top of my head, I would, just kind of recommend, we say this enough, but bump up your contribution percentage. Even if you think you can't afford it, try to push yourself. Make it 2025 a year where you push yourself to get closer to your savings goals. If you're contributing 4%, it's what you've always done. Be like, you know what? If I don't go out to eat one time this month, I'll have paid for this extra contribution percentage. And probably your 70-year-old self in the future will thank you for doing that.
And I can't express enough how to get the match. Don't put 4% in. If they're matching 6, put 6% in. Stretch yourself to do it. You don't want to leave that money on the table.
Yeah, that's good. And then I would just add to that, either something that, regardless of whether or not there's changes in amounts and contribution limits each year, it's still something that at the end of each year, the start of each year, probably better at the end of each year, I should wrap things up so you can prepare, but just go ahead and evaluate what you're doing and decide if you going into that next year, what things are looking like, and if you want to make any changes to the contributions or withholdings or things like that. It's always a good time to be doing that.
Great reminders. Great tips.
Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get back on track doing these here throughout the year. Hopefully get back to doing one a week for you guys. We've had some good feedback. So thanks again for joining us on this week's Retire While You Work podcast, and we'll see you guys in the future.
Any opinions are those of myself and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information contained in these podcasts do not purport to be a complete description of the securities market or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Every investor's situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Any hypothetical examples are for illustration purposes only. Actual investor results will vary. Raymond James does not provide legal or tax services. Please discuss these matters with the appropriate professional.